Hi everyone, and welcome to the first video of this tutorial series for the Overthewire Bandit challenge. So the goal of this video is to help us set up the CLI because I want to add my own twist at this challenge, and my twist is that we are going to take it down without touching the mouse once. So to do that, we need a bit of setup, so that's what we are going to do here in this video. So for those of you who don't know what Bandit is, it's the first wargame of a website called Overthewire, which is shown just right there. And basically on Overthewire you can learn about cybersecurity by starting with the wargame Bandit, which helps you understand, I think, the command line, of course, for those of you who didn't use it at all, basics of networking, basics of Git, I think that's it, maybe basics of cryptography. Basically the challenge is really basic, and is just to get sure that you get the opportunity to learn about all these topics. What's interesting of all in that challenge is that we are going to see a lot of commands that may be useful in our day-to-day lives as developers, and it's a shame that we don't get to integrate them into our code flow. By setting this little challenge within the wargame, it gives me the opportunity to show you how to put into practice these useful tools and commands that we'll learn. So we'll take a bit of advance at the first I think maybe 1 or 2 challenges by setting up our command line, and then we'll see how to solve them in the next videos. Let's start then by killing that nice header. First of all, let's ensure that everyone gets the same environment. We are not forced to have the same environment to develop and to complete the challenges. Basically, what I'm offering you here is the opportunity to, even if you're working on Windows, shame on you by the way, but even if you're working on Windows, you should be able to run the Linux commands no matter how old or what OS you're running, and this will be thanks to podman. So if you don't want to hear about podman or Docker, I'm using podman, but I aliased it as Docker, so it might be a bit confusing here. I'll talk about Docker, but if you don't want to hear at all about containerization, you can skip this part and it will work as intended as soon as you're running on Unix machine, whether be it Mac or a Linux. So I'm running on Mac, but I'm going to use a container based on Linux anyways, so I can show you the same set of commands I'm using. Okay, so let's go. And basically, if you want to get an introduction of what Docker is, what podman is, there are a lot of great videos on the internet with a lot of drawings and everything, but what I'm going to do here is to give you the minimal set of commands to be proficient with podman, which means building images, running containers, starting and stopping already running containers, like already created containers, and killing containers. Okay, so I figured out it was better since I wasn't doing anything to just print my beautiful header back. It took me like, I don't know, 10-15 minutes to do, so I want to show it for at least 10-15 minutes. So I continue my explanation. What I was saying is that I want to give you the minimal set of commands just to be proficient with containers. Let's go, and first let's create a container from an image. To do so, we are going to use the command docker. So I give you a Docker file which basically does the following. It runs and updates, so it's based on the Ubuntu image, as we can see here on line 3, and it will update the package manager. It will install curl just to retrieve URLs on the internet, and ZSH to have a more powerful shell, Git to have version control, and less to have a nicer pager. A pager is basically what you are seeing here. So the output doesn't clog the terminal and doesn't need you to use your arrows or your mouse to navigate it, but instead you see it run in its own program, and then when you press Q, you can see that we are just leaving the pager. Okay, so let's go back to the Docker file. Then it installs omyzsh, which is what you are able to see here. It's a nicer, basically a nicer prompt, command completion and everything. And then it installs some nice utilities and a plugin in the ZSH-RC. So we are not going to navigate it right now anyway. I just wanted to show you guys what is in there. Drop your questions in the comments if you need any explanation. Now let's create a container. So to build our image, we can just use the command. So whether it be Docker or podman, no matter. So we can run docker build -t to give a name to our image. So let's call our image Overthewire challenges. I don't know how to write anymore. Overthewire challenges and dot to give the context. So here it will be the directory where our Docker file resides in. So it will be dot for the current directory. Could also be $pwd, doesn't matter at all. We just have to wait that our image is built. So this occurs, and this may occur for you guys, so I'm going to leave it. This occurs because I already built an image and some layers have been cached. Let's just look in the man page because I don't recall the command anymore. Of course, wrong comment. Okay, so just running with option --no -cache to run it as if it was from the start, so no layer has been built upon before. It will run way slower if you had a lot of cached layers, but you see when you need to update the package manager apt because the links often change, so you might need to have to build without the cache. I think I called it that way, doesn't matter that much. Okay, I think we're good. So now we just have to wait. So I think I speeded that part. Okay, so now the image has been built and then we can run the container. So basically we are going to manage our containers using 3 commands. 3. I think so. I don't know how to count. Sorry. So basically there are docker run, docker start, docker stop, docker rm. 4 commands. Docker run. It starts a container from an image. Starts a container from an image. Docker starts a stopped container. Docker stop, guessed it, stops a container. Docker rm removes a container. Okay, so basically that's all what we need. So you'll see me use them during the videos. So for now, just don't care about what each of them do. Remember that when you start a container and you don't have any existing container, you'll use docker run. Then when you stop the container with docker stop, and if you don't remove it with docker rm, you can start it again with docker start. And if you want to execute a command on an already running container, you can use docker exec. Already running container. Let's run the container. We have to specify some flags, so we will need, and I'll explain that a bit later, but we'll need to forward a port from our host machine to our container. So it means that all the requests incoming on the port that we will forward to our container will be transferred to our container. I let you pick the port that you want. You may want to, I don't know, forward the port 6210, for example. 6210 to the port 6210 on our container. Just pick one and we'll use it later. Docker run -p 6210 6210. You can pick any available port you want. -it, our image name, so Overthewire challenges, and that's pretty much it. No, we're going to give it a name. So name comes here, and let's say bandit, I don't know, bandit container. Maybe I'd already have bandit running, and -p Overthewire challenges. And we see that we are into the container, so everything worked perfectly, and my.zsh is installed in the container. Great. Now we can introduce our new contestant, tmux. I don't know where they mention tmux in the Overthewire docs because I haven't logged into Overthewire for a while. I mean, not in Bandit, and I haven't read all the explanatory text like for a long while. So I don't remember where they mention it, but basically I learned about tmux in Overthewire. They told me to learn about it when I did the first challenge, and then I stumbled upon a YouTube video that gave me the will to learn about it. And since I've been using tmux, guys, I just can't do without it because it's so good. So maybe you won't like it at first, but if you give the right amount of effort to be like just a bit proficient with it, it will really help you guys. You may not like it and you may want to do another way. You do you. Just I think you should learn about this option. Basically, how does tmux works? It's a terminal multiplexer, so it allows you to have multiple sessions, panes, and windows for your terminal. So this won't be a tmux tutorial, I just show you a few commands, and then I link to a good video in the description if you want to learn more about the basics of tmux. But don't forget to experiment yourself, because this is how you'll really understand how it works. So you run a tmux session with tmux new, and then you see at the bottom of the screen, here is our session name. By default it goes from 0 and then to the infinity. I don't think there is a maximum number of sessions. Here is our I think it's our window name. No, here is our window number, and here is our window name. So if we run Control B. So Control B is to send a command to tmux. Control B and then comma. We can rename the window. So let's rename it Structs window. And then with Control B and N, we should be able to change window, but that's not what I wanted to do. Control B and C, my bad. So with Control B and C, we can create another window, and then we can navigate between the two. So if, for example, I say echo hello, and then I go back with Control B and P for previous, I can see that there is no echo hello written on the first window because these are really different terminals. So Control B and P to go back, P like P as in previous and N as in next. So Control B and N to go to the next window. You can also go to a window by specifying its window number. So Control B and 1 to go to the first window. Then on the first window, for example, wherever you are, we can run Control B and double quotes to split our window horizontally into two panes. So two panes are in a window and windows are in a session. And if we change session, so we are not going to see here how to create multiple sessions because we don't need multiple sessions. But if we want to create multiple sessions, basically the same logic. So panes live within a window, which all live within a session. So you are a client and you are speaking to the server and you can attach to different sessions. One client has to be attached to one session, but multiple clients can be attached to one session. You can split further. So with Control B %, you can split vertically. And then with Control B and Q, you can see it prints the pane numbers on the screen. And then Control B, Q and 0, for example, brings me back to the first pane. So we could also press Control B and semicolon to go back to the previous selected pane. One last command, I think the most important, it's Control B and question mark, and then you can see all the commands. You can navigate them with either the directional arrows or with page up and page down if you got them on your keyboards, and you see it's a bit faster. Okay. So everything is great up until now. One last thing, maybe two things, I'd say. Okay, I don't even remember which one is the command. I think it's D. Anyway, so if you want to leave tmux, you can run tmux detach. And bang, you'll be detached from session 0. And then you can tmux attach, and you can even specify your target, so -t for target and then your session target name. But by default, if there is only one session, you'll attach to this one session. And to kill a pane, so let's go to pane number 1, Control B X, it asks you if you want to kill pane number 1, you press Y and bang, pane number 1 is dead. Okay, so that's basically it. And if you want to, I don't remember the command because I don't do that so often. If you want to, you can press Control B and exclamation mark to break the pane in another window. So basically we've created another window with pane 0. That's basically it for tmux. I hope you guys aren't too lost at this point. Maybe we'll recap at the end of the video. Anyways, I'll give you some really good material in the description, so don't worry if you feel lost or anything. You'll find everything in the description. Now that we've seen the basics of tmux and Docker, I think it's time to show you how to stop, start, and remove containers, just so you know how to do it whenever you want to do it. First thing first, let's stop our container. As our container is running a shell, and the shell is the only process that this container is running, when we'll exit that shell, it will stop the container because the container needs something to do. Tmux detach first, okay, and then we can press Ctrl D and exit the container. Now let's run docker ps-a, and we can see that right there, Overthewire challenges, it was created 25 hours ago because I recorded the sessions in multiple go. So it just exited, and we can see that it's bounty containers as we named it. So let's run not docker run, but docker start -ai for attach and interactive. and Bandit container without any more arguments. And we're back into our container, and if we do tmux ls, the server has been killed. So that's the problem, because the container stops, the tmux server dies, so there is no way to like stop the container and keep the tmux server open. That's the only trouble, but you might, for example, install tmux in your command line, whether be it PowerShell or the Linux command line, and run the container inside tmux. If we want, for example, to, so we need for that another terminal window, so I press Command T because I'm on Mac, and if we want to execute a command on our container, so for example, if we would like to run the correct say -t Bandit container, not it because we aren't going to connect to a container, we are just going to run a command on the container. So if we want to run, for example, just echo hello, so docker exec our container name, hello, and we see that the command gets executed on the container. Okay, so if we'd like to, I don't know, run another shell, so another shell session on the same container, we run exec-it for interactive and TTY, Bandit container and ZSH, and we get another shell which is different from the last one. And we could, for example, just, so we see that here when we quit the, so I'm pointing my screen as if you could see it. You can see here that then we quit, when we quit the container doesn't die because there is another shell connected to it. And for example, if we'd like to run, I don't know, bash, so our ZSH session will still be live, and we'd be able to run commands in our bash session without them being echoed on our ZSH sessions. Now let's see, so let's kill that window because I actually don't need it at all. Let's run a new tmux session because tmux is way better to work with, and let's see some very basics of bash control flows. So we are going to see if conditions, while conditions, functions, and cases. So case is a special case of switch if you've been doing some programming before. So let's first start with the if condition. So what I'm going to do here is just to print the man page of bash next to our working space so we can see what I'm talking about. First, you really should, if you are going to do like a bit more complex use of a command line, see at least the definitions and the grammar of your shell. So the definitions are right there near the beginning, then the reserved words, the grammar. It really explains what's happening when you're running a command, so you really should give a look at it. So a list is a sequence of one or more pipelines separated by one of the operators semicolon, ampersand, double ampersand, or double pipe, and optionally terminated by one of semicolon, ampersand, or new line. That's really, really important because the lists are used in the compound commands. So we are going to take a look at the compound commands. So maybe you've seen the subshell commands, maybe you've seen the list in brackets that's executed in the current shell environment, maybe you've seen mathematical expressions. So what we are going to look at for now are if conditions. If list, then list, elif else, and then phi. Okay, no problem. So for example, we can agree that this is a valid list. So echo. So it's not a very useful one, but it is a valid one. Now let's put that one in a if condition. Okay, because it's written, so it's not the best example. So it works. Syntactically, it works, but it's not the best example. By the way, we are using ZSH and really man bash because it's way easier to work with man bash even when doing ZSH programming, because for the very, very basics, they are like the same. So you can do that and not have any problem until the very tricky or complicated things, but we are not going to do them here. You should really read man bash even though we're using the ZSH shell. Let's not return 0. You can pause at any time to just try and guess what the output will be. I suggest you to do that actually and to implement that by yourself. But what we are going to see is that if echo bonjour, then bonjour will be echoed to our terminal, and then because echo bonjour written true will echo salut, and then we won't echo nothing. Perfect. So that's basically how if condition work. The spaces, so here I'm going to take the mouse. So you see here that there is a space. These spaces aren't optional. These spaces are. So basically you could do something like that and it still work, because the semicolon is a valid separator. These are for the if condition, but let's say that we'd like to not do them on one line. If list then semicolon, the semicolon is optional because it's written here in the man page. So we need to go to list, and list is optionally terminated by one of semicolon, ampersand, or new line. If you end your list with a new line, it will still be a valid list. What it tells us is that we can do something like that. You see that ZSH is waiting for something. And we see that we have written the exact same piece of code, but on multiple lines. This is basically how it works. So I suggest you experiment with it and don't hesitate to tell me in the comments if you'd like some exercises or some things like that. So now let me just check. So case. We'll see the while loop a bit later because I don't want this video to be too long. So case, why are we in case here, you'll say? It's because we are going to need our cases in our next part. For now, so we have case word in pattern or pattern, then list, and then exec. So basically what we want to do is, I'd say something like a switch. So basically, what is a case? So let's say we have an option. And we want to match it against option. So no. Let's say option. Check that our option is set. Our option is set. And let's try to match that option. Let's try to match that option against a set of options, predefined options. Okay, so we have, for example, let's say O, not yet, let's say A, is A. Okay, so we see that we have a list and then two semicolons. So we put the two semicolons. Then B, echo option is B. C echo option is C. O echo option is O. And if it is everything else, we'll say unrecognized option. Okay, great. Let's reset the value of our option. Run the case again. Okay, great. Let's say that let's set the value to an unrecognized value. That's perfect. And as you may have guessed, we also could have put everything in one line and it would have worked just the same. Okay, so that's for the case. We're going to use that when we are going to define our functions in the next part. Last, the functions. So for the functions, basically these are like functions in any other programming language. So there are multiple ways to define a function. So you see that it's a name, a compound comment with optional redirections. Okay, so we are not going to get into the redirections yet. So if you know it, that's great, but we aren't going to get into them yet. Basically, the function, so the syntax I prefer is function name. I omit the parentheses because they're optional, and then my compound command. And for my compound command, I can go there to see how to write a compound command. So it's one of the following. So basically, I use that one. So that one for my function. Okay, let's go. Let's define a function called test function in the current shell. And basically what it will do is echo I am the test function. We close the brackets, and when we call test function, it echoes I am the test function. So let's go a bit into the definition and let's print all the function arguments. Not very practical that way, don't care. Go. So for all the functions argument, where did I found them? You might ask. So you'll be able to find all the parameters right there. At is this parameter, so it expands to the positional parameters starting from 1. So I let you read the full definition under special parameters in the bash manual. Maybe I put links in the description for those who would like to read. When I call test function 1, it echoes 1. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. Goodbye. Goodbye, you get the idea. So basically that's how we define functions, and we are going to use those functions once we've seen some utilities and the SSH protocol to simplify our workflow during the challenges. Hello guys, just a quick outro so I can make things clear for you, because I originally intended to publish the video in one big chunk, but as I was editing it, I saw that it was becoming bigger and bigger. So basically, I just wanted to split it for you so it's a bit more digest. What we have seen here is the first part of the video. So I showed you the basic setup for tmux, Docker, and Bash. In the next video, we are going to see SSH, some basic shell utilities, and to wrap everything we've learned so far in really nice functions for us to use during our Bandit challenge experience. So if you liked the video, or if you want me to explain some things further, don't hesitate to drop me a comment. I read them and I try to answer them as fast as I can. I'm eager to just know what you think about this video, and I'd like to have your opinion. Maybe would you like some deeper Bash tutorial, because there are a lot of things that we could cover on Bash and that we of course didn't cover here in this video. So if it is of any interest to you, just drop me a message. See you guys!